Amen. Okay, so I think we're actually almost done with the teaching. I'm not sure what else I want to do here. I do have a couple of more pages of notes we could do, but I think I like where we are. I think we're going to have a little bit more to wrap up here. We'll see. Some of you go, no, keep going, keep going. Well, I got other stuff. Okay. This is called the Afterburn. And so if you have comments or questions about this teaching, you can go ahead and come up to the mic and get in line for the mic as we do on our new method here. If you're online, I've got Kurt and Rob on the live stream desk. Okay? That's right. See what they learned from you, Billy. He started doing this thing here, like, okay? Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a few from here, and then we'll go to the live stream. So give the live stream people a chance to start typing some things in. We'll begin with Shira.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, Janet.
Oh.
We love each other. Oh,
he's behind you. That's okay.
He's a real man. That guy.
We
don't have to worry about that.
All right.
I'm just teasing. A couple things. Rejoicing in the truth. Don't rejoice in the evil, but rejoice in the truth. I find this fellowship delightful in its freedom to clap and celebrate each other's victories.
Man.
And I think, sometimes we get comments, what a delightful congregation, but I've not found this anywhere else. I've not seen this anywhere else. Thank you for this leadership and for, whack-a-moling us on the toes, because I really feel that, the encouragement that comes and goes with each other, exchanges. It's wonderful. Question. Love never fails. Would you care to make a little clearer definition? It never fails to do what? Is it about endures or has an effect or?
Okay, so I said it before, but I'll hopefully repackage it in a way that makes sense. When things don't work, it's not love that failed. It's our application of it. So it's just trying to make sure that we understand that love is not the problem, okay? If we have an endurance problem, it wasn't a love problem. It was our application of love was not enough to get the endurance or to be patient or the other things that it talks about. So it's not that love fails, it's that we have failed to embrace enough of it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so in other words, as we grow, we're going to see ourselves be able to endure all things, as you were saying, and have an effect.
Okay, so think of it this way. Okay, so if you're being patient, all right, love will accomplish that thing correctly because you're being patient, the love part. So it's not the love part that fails, is what I'm saying. Love never fails. We fail.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. So we... Again, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just being obtuse.
Okay, so in other words, love is kind, but we're not always kind. Well, love didn't fail. We failed to be loving. Okay? In other words, what love is intended to do always works when love is actually being applied. Okay? Problem is that we don't apply it very well.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it doesn't fail to produce Yeshua's character in us. It doesn't.
No, it's more than that. It doesn't fail to produce whatever love is designed to produce.
Okay.
The thing is, we fail to apply it. And then, so we want to blame love, we want to blame everything but the fact that it was really us that failed. The love did not fail. Okay? So when you're being kind to somebody, that is going to produce a little bit of Yeshua's character in me, but it's also going to hopefully get a result out of you. Okay, now, this is a really great example. So if I'm kind to you and I get blown up in my face even though I'm being kind to you, did love fail? No. There was a failure in you to receive the love, but the kindness is not to blame. The fact that, but I treated him with kindness and he got mad at me or it just blew up in my face, or it wasn't the love that was the problem. Okay? Oh, but I was patient, or I was this, or I was that. Well, that doesn't mean that just because you did your side of it, doesn't mean the result on the other side is always going to be what you desire, but it's not going to be love's fault, because when you're in a relationship, there's two of you, okay? And you still do your part, and it doesn't guarantee that it will automatically get you the result you wanted, okay? It's still the right way to go.
Okay, so it is about results in the sense that a perfected love or a pure love allows Yahweh full opportunity to have the effect he intended, whether the other person is ready to receive it?
I don't know that I would limit it to that either, because he's working with that other person in whatever way he's working with that other person.
Okay.
But you just need to understand is that it's kind of like saying you have to do the right thing because it's the right thing, okay? But the thing is, if I do what it says here, if I'm walking patiently and not envying and not boasting, not puffed up, not indecent, not all these other things, and yet my relationship still is awful, I could say, well, it doesn't work. And the answer is no, love didn't fail. Okay? You might have done it as best as you can. It's still not love's fault that it didn't work the way you thought it should, because the other person may not be in a place where they can receive the love. Okay?
Right. I guess what I'm referring to, did it do what Yahweh intended at that point, even if it doesn't look like it?
It always does what he wants if you do
it.
Because he said to do it. So whatever he says to do is going to yield the result that he's looking for, which is the initial result that he wants in love is for you to do it, no matter what the other person responds. Okay? Now, he also teaches you how to respond to things, and now he's, again, talking only to you, not the other person. So if the other person treats you with love or they treat you with hate, he tells you how you're supposed to respond. So you can only control one, you.
Amen.
Okay? So the only result he's concerned with, so that would go back to your first point, and I would agree with it from that point of view, is that it's going to yield transformation into him to another little piece of the puzzle.
Okay. Praise Abba. One more thing. Thank you for your patience.
I'm trying to be loving.
I'm being grateful. I just thank you so much. It was an awesome teaching last night. I would encourage anyone that hadn't heard it yet. We got our month work cut out for us, if not our whole year. But it was awesome. And the whole thing that you went into about mindset, and you brought it up again today. I had a scripture that came to me this morning as I was pondering this about mindset. It's from Psalm 86:11, where David says, "Unite my heart to fear your name." And so I was just thinking, would this be that David actually is seeing that he has different parts inside of him that need to come into harmony, and that he's asking Father to help him, the essential David, our essential self, to do that harmonizing.
Yeah, I think you could read that in there. I think that'd be appropriate.
So that we could reverence his authority, basically. Okay. The essential you, it came up last night, and you touched on it today. That essence of you that is in the driver's seat and has the power to decide how to harmonize and not let the mind rule over the emotions or the emotions drive over the mind. And that essential you, I had a thought and I wanted to run by you. Would that be actually the will, my will, my choice, the essential me, decided to follow Yahweh, decided to follow this path, to worship him and not myself, or the essential me could have decided to just do my own thing and the self-idolatry and not follow him. Does that
That's kind of true, but it really, again, remember, okay, so think of it like you're in a very interesting, unique type of a vehicle, and there's three seats in this vehicle, okay? There's you, there's your thoughts, and there's your emotions. Okay, because remember I told you, you're not your thoughts and you're not your emotions. You call it the essential you, right? Now, the seats are very fluid in terms of movement. The steering wheel is in the front. Whoever is the strongest, their seat moves to the front. So you may be sitting in the back, behind the thoughts and the emotions. You may be sitting in the front where you're letting the emotions know, I'm going to drive. You guys can have your opinions, but I'm going to drive. But really, remember, whichever one is strongest actually is in the driver's seat. The chairs move. The one that's in front of the steering wheel is the driver's seat. Whoever's strongest is in the driver's seat. Okay? So if you have an emotion that's actually driving and dominating against your essential you wanting to keep Torah, it's not that your essential you chose to go against Torah necessarily. It could be, or it could just be an emotional response. Okay? It could be a fear response saying, I can't do this, I can't lose all my friends, I can't, whatever you think negatively might happen. Okay? And so, because you need a congruence. I want to observe the commandments and have a covenanted relationship with the Father, believe in Messiah and a relationship with Messiah. But I have to have enough expectation of the blessing and the joy of that to overcome the fears and the insecurities about what that might look like in my other relationships. There's a whole emotional and thinking turmoil going on that needs to be settled with you still driving in the driver's seat. Okay?
I would just like to testify that I think, listening and pondering this, that I have already begun to have some success, praise Yahweh, in putting me in the driver's seat, because as a blue, I've been so emotionally driven. But it doesn't always feel comfortable once that transformation starts to happen, because I have thoughts of, oh my gosh, I'm losing my sensitivity. I'm losing my, and I'm having to adjust to this new place in which I myself have decided that there are appropriate times, hopefully, like when Billy shouts Yahweh, I can shout Yahweh too, hopefully. Tell me if I'm wrong. But
no, I wouldn't tell you you're wrong. I just blame Billy.
Oh, okay. But I'm truly blessed to be, just to decide, okay, I can trust sometimes my emotions more because I'm knowing I'm in control, so I have more freedom in appropriate times to actually feel things and express things, especially, before Yahweh. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does. Just to clarify that last piece. The emotions, I don't want you trusting them.
Okay.
I want you to allow them to speak. Your thoughts, don't trust them. Allow them to speak. And you use your reason to decide whether or not to listen to what they have to say. Okay? So the emotions have a voice. They can have an opinion. I want, I don't want, I like, all those preferences, all those emotional things. And you want to hear that. You don't want to be influenced by it just because they're saying it, but you want to hear it, and then you want to choose whether or not you're going to go in that direction. Same thing with your thoughts, okay? So, again, it's not about trusting them. You can't trust them.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
They are only driven by emotion. I want to feel or not feel a certain way. You can't trust that. But you can objectively hear that and go, okay, is that appropriate right now, that thing to get this feeling? Do we really want to do this? And the thought's going to say, well, logically and rationally, blah, 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 blah. And then you have to try to make sure to integrate everything into a congruence and make your decision.
So I think we're in agreement. It's like I can trust my decision once I've
got to trust you. You have to trust you.
Trust my decision
to not be overly influenced by them.
By them, right?
Okay.
But to let them, when it feels appropriate.
Let them give you information to say, I'm really excited about this, or I really don't want to do this, and that's an emotional response. And the logic going, well, I think it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do because of these reasons. And then you have to have confidence that you can take all that information and make a right choice.
Okay.
Okay?
It isn't always comfortable transitioning, but thank you so much. I'm excited.
Okay? The one thing I didn't say, maybe I said it last night, I want to say it again today, is be careful that when you're listening, if the emotional side is strong enough, it can conspire with the thoughts to back it up. Do you understand what I just said? if your emotion is strong enough, it'll influence the thinking part of your brain to justify the emotion. It won't be an independent thinking process. If the emotions are just okay in medium strength, whatever, then the thoughts can have enough strength to just say, well, I don't know, let's just make sure that's the right thing to do. But if the emotion is really super powerful, your brain's going to come up with, your thinking is going to come up with all kinds of reasons why it's the right thing to do or why it's the right thing not to do, because the emotions are just driving at that point. And so just understand that sometimes it's 2 against 1, not each one, and then you have to make a decision. You may be getting double teamed there. Especially if the emotions are the ones that are really strongly dominating, when you really, really, really don't want to do something, you will come up with every logical, rational sounding reason not to do it. Instead of the rational part of your brain going, well, but we need to do it because it's the right thing to do. It may not be capable to override that much emotion. Okay? This is not easy stuff, but I'm helping you understand how it works. Okay? When I say it's not easy, it's easy to understand, it's not easy to do. Okay, Craig? And since Shira went so long, and then Craig's going to have his time, then we'll go to live stream right after Craig.
Yes, when you were talking about decency in clothing, and the one items that I have a hard time with men would be, I feel naked if I accidentally forget to put on the tzitzit.
Right.
That's probably the one instance where I struggled with judgment. Well,
I don't think that tzitzit wearing is decency or not. It's a covenantal thing between them and the Father, and it's something you don't need to be involved in if they wear it or not. I may get involved with it as their teacher, depending on my level of relationship. There's a lot of men I've never said a word to. There are a few men I've looked at them like, where are your tzitzit? It really has to do with my relationship with them, right? And very few ever have I said to people, like, where's your tzitzit, So just realize that it's not a decency thing. That's actually an obedience, submission, relationship thing. Right. Decency is going to be much more cultural and affected by the times you live in and everything else.
It just happens to feel like that for me when I notice that I forget them. It feels like I.
Well, then you're going to feel that you're not appropriately dressed, and that's fine for you to feel that way. Okay, but don't look at others if they're not doing it, because that's where we can get in the other problems that are discussed here.
The other thing is, I personally think that you're actually, over the years, maybe getting a little softer. Or I'm growing in a way that it's not hitting me. And I guess that one of the I don't know if
I don't think I've changed. I think it's your hearing that's changed. I think some people think I'm actually getting stronger. I think it's a testament to you growing.
And I've been told by people that know you very well that I've become a good deal of you and what I am now. So that's kind of an odd thing, because I think relationship-wise, I don't think it's you and I don't think it's me, but I think it's that you're an initiator. I think I am too, because if I don't reach out to anybody, nobody ever reaches out back. So I think but it's just, and that there's a level of respect that has to be given, and right. It's just it's a weird thing.
Amen. Okay, if anything, I would say, when I first started doing this, I was 30, how old was I? 36, 37 years old, right? That's pretty young. And I was, if you ask somebody like Uncle Bob, who knows me from back then, he'll say that, this is the kinder, gentler rabbi, but not from this, I don't know if it's from that perspective. I think I was much more immature and didn't understand the right way to treat people. Now, I still don't, but at least maybe a little better, okay? But so in some ways, I may be more kinder and gentler than that, which you would never have known, because there's no evidence of it anywhere on video or anything, because it's from 1999, 2000, 2001, that kind of stuff. But I think that in some ways I'm much stronger now, because I'm much more confident in my role and my position, so I don't have anything holding me back in some of the things that I do that I might have been restrained. Was I ever restrained? I don't know. I'd have to ask the wife. I'm wondering if actually I'm saying something that's not even true. But I think I had a little bit of restraint because I was trying to figure out the job a little bit. If you understand what I'm saying? Now that I've been doing it for so long, I think I'm a little bit more comfortable to just be whatever I feel he needs me to be, just to let that be what it is. But I think to you, Craig, the answer is maybe some of you could feel differently, but I don't think that I've gotten any less there. I think that your hearing is able to receive it in a different way. And that's what I was saying earlier, that as we grow and mature, we receive it differently. All right? Okay, who's next? Oh, live stream. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Okay, from First Love, it says, my husband's mouth and vulgarities. He knows how I feel. This is a battle for me. His mouth has caused the whole family to curse and talk inappropriately in various ways. Recommendations for me?
Okay, 2 recommendations. Okay, first of all, let's understand it. Well, before we get the recommendations, first I'm going to say that you have to come to a place where you understand there are no vulgarities, there are no curse words, there are no bad words, there are words. Okay, they're just words. Now, the fact that you think they're inappropriate, that's absolutely your right to think. I'm not saying anything against that. Just understand that the words are just words. Now, that being said, okay, you're not walking in agreement in your house. That's a problem. And you're not being respected for how you feel, at least from the idea of saying, I don't appreciate and don't desire this language, these words being used in my presence in my house. And so you'll need to then go and have a discussion with your husband and the family about that relationship. Look, you're not walking in agreement. So on the one hand, I am trying to get you to understand that it's just words, but not so that you'll stop feeling the way you do. You're totally allowed and entitled to not like certain words and not feel that they're appropriate, and that's fine. So don't miss that point. But you are having a walking in agreement problem. You and your husband are not in agreement. And that's why the rest of the family uses them too. They imitate him. And so you have 2 choices. You get over it, or you have a discussion that's to help your husband understand how serious this is. It's not serious because they're vulgar and curse words and everything else. You want him to be understanding how much he's offending or hurting your feelings, and you feel disrespected because he won't change his language around you out of respect for you. Did that make sense how I said that for everybody? Because what generally happens is the wife will then get in a very judging way. What kind of a loser you are? You use all those curse words and those vulgarities and the ways you were raised. You sound like a whatever. No, that's not going to work. Go to him in a loving way. Say, I'm your wife, and I want you to know that it really hurts me when you use those words. And I'm not judging you. Just so you need to know from where I'm coming from. Those words, I don't like them. I'm very uncomfortable with them. And I feel very disrespected that I've told you this and you keep doing it anyway. And so this is making a real problem for me in our relationship. You see the difference on how to word that? All right? Because the other side is a judgmental side. I have decided or agree with certain parts of society that these words are vulgar. I mean, they're words. I think we're still children if we think that words are, sticks and stones may break bones, words. I mean, we learned that as a little kid. Why are words still so offensive? It's just words. You know what my bigger concern is? Is that people have missed the point of words. What's the point of words? What's the word? What's the point? Well, communication. To convey an idea is what Rick said, right? So the point of my using words is that you will understand what I'm saying, what I'm feeling, and what I want or what I don't want, whatever it is. I'm trying to communicate something to you. Okay. If I throw the traditionally undesirable words into every sentence, they lose any value in communicating. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're just thrown in there as additional words for no reason. It's the same idea with good words. Like if every time I saw you, if you're say I'm married to you, and every time we talk, I love you, love you, love you, love you, then it loses all its value. I'm not saying you should never say I love you, but you say I love you when you want to convey as communication. It's not just a way that you end every phone call just because it's the right thing to say, I love you. You're not feeling that right at that second. But when you say to him, say, hey, listen, come here. I want you to know I love you. I say, hey, I love you. And that's communication, not just an ending of a closing to a conversation. Love you, love you, love. It loses value. And the other person knows at the moment you're maybe in a little bit of an off time with each other, they know you don't feel that way. It's just became mechanical. All right? So words are words, and we need to just grow up and realize that. And I'm not saying that means you should or shouldn't use any of them, but they're just words. So whatever anybody else uses, pay more attention to what they're trying to communicate, not the words they're using. Okay? And not be offended so much about it. This is really baby stuff, if you ask me. I think not baby stuff that you're offended by them necessarily. It's just that this is bought into by ultra controlling, dictating, Baptist-like, whatever, Christian-like control places where everything is being judged and has to be according to one set standard by somebody in the 1300s or whatever. All right, some dumb thing like that. It's communication. Listen, if I'm in another room and you hear me go, oh man, you have at least a sense of the level of what just happened. If I go and say something, you'll know there's a whole different level of what just happened. You don't have to be in the room to see it. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's communication. Again, I'm not endorsing or defending. I'm just simply saying is if you use it appropriately, it communicates differently. Words are only supposed to be a form of communication. And when it's no longer that, then I think it's actually a bad use of the words. If you're just throwing them out there, just throwing them out there, then it's stupid. Because now you've diminished the value if you use it in the right way. How could there be a right way? They're dirty words and they're bad words. Well, listen, if I use that word and you hear me, you'll know something's happening. Couldn't log into that password one more time. And so you should receive out of that, if you heard me do that, is, wow, he's really not happy right now. He's really upset about something. As opposed to, oh, I can't believe he used that word. Oh. Okay? Maybe I need someone to come in and calm me down and just say, hey, it's going to be all right. Can I help you with something? Because I'm clearly upset. If you have somebody using that language the way I suppose it would be appropriate on whatever level, you know they're really upset. Those words generally only get used when somebody is really upset. Because they are to give you the scale. Okay? You're doing something and something happens, you go, oh, stink. Well, that's not the same as saying oh and fill in a different word. Okay? All right? What you may say if you knock over a glass in the kitchen and it falls on the floor is different than if you just banged your car into a telephone pole. Order of magnitude. You're probably not going to use the same words. You agree? And let's not be hypocrites. It gets extreme enough, you'll use the words too. Every one of you. Oh, not me. All right. We'll see. It's communication. But are we mature enough to understand communication? And that words are just words. They're ways to communicate information from one person to another. All right? All right, next. Oh, so just the counsel with that lady. So you're going to have to work out something with your husband to sit down and realize he's not respectfully interacting with you when you've asked him. If someone asks me not to use whatever they ask me not to do, I will do my best to try to honor that out of respect for them. I don't have to use any particular words about anything. I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, Rabbi's like a truck driver out there. By the way, not all truck drivers use that language, by the way. But they're thinking, oh, well, listen, potty mouth. I lost half the audience over this. We're gonna have 5 people in the chat room next week. All right, go ahead. Some of you are all thinking, maybe he'll let one loose right now. I pulled a muscle a couple of weeks not doing that, by the way. All right. Somebody get me out of this. Next.
Okay, from MTOI Philippines, Jet Singh says, could we get to the fullest spiritual maturity but not our physical, or maybe the other way around? Hoping this makes sense.
It didn't. Try it again.
It says, could we get to the fullest spiritual maturity but not our physical, or maybe the other way around?
I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this. I'm guessing that it has to do with, look, the physical maturity be doing the mechanical things, and the spiritual maturity doing the way it was intended, and with the right approach and the right attitude and all that kind of stuff. I don't think you can get fully to one without the other. You can get probably a lot of the mechanics done without the spiritual. You can't get any of the spiritual done without the mechanics, from that point of view. Okay, so I think that, there are people that can get a lot of the mechanics right and still have the spirit of the intent not there. Okay, you don't have to have all the right understanding to eat correctly and keep Sabbath and not murder, not this and that. I mean, because that's the mechanical part of it. Even though you sitting there the whole time plotting and wishing you could kill the person, but you didn't kill him, so hey, you got the mechanical part down. All right? But I don't think you get the spiritual part down and not the mechanical. I can't imagine you got the whole spirit of the intent and you went and killed the guy anyway. Because, so I think you can get the physical part possibly without the spiritual part, but not the other way around. But remember, the physical part has no value because it ends up being a level of hypocrisy and things like that if you have it down without the spiritual part. Because I may have enough fear, okay, to see a pretty woman and not sleep with her. Because I'm married and I have a ministry and all, I'm having a fear, right? So fear to keep me from doing something physically. So I got the mechanical part down. But that doesn't mean I might not fantasize and dream about and kind of interact, even though, I didn't take it that far. And you understand what I'm saying? That's a whole different level of challenge. And so there's really no value in the fact that I didn't actually commit adultery. I mean, yeah, great, so I didn't do it. But all the other things I did was worse in some ways, at least as bad. Certainly as damaging to my relationship potentially with my wife, because you start really thinking a lot of thoughts like that about somebody other than your spouse, it will affect your relationship with your spouse. Okay? They will feel it at some point that something is not exactly right. Even if you're not actually cheating in the physical act of cheating, but you are cheating in your head and in your heart, they will feel that. They will know that you're no longer giving them all that you were giving them before. Okay, next.
Okay, from Kathleen Phillips, concerning dress style, especially for women, should we not follow the pattern exactly? Dress similar to the way they dressed in Torah times, long skirts, head coverings of some sort.
Look, we live in a completely different world with completely different clothing. Okay? Clothing, okay, let's start with the same thing with words. Clothing has a purpose. It's a functional purpose. Number one, it's functional, okay? And so we wear clothing because it performs a function. Then there's a secondary level of it, is that there's an aesthetic value to it. Certain clothing enhances how you look. And so you wear certain things because you know it looks good on you and other things don't look good on you. And so you make choices based on making an appreciated and valued impression because of your presentation. Now, a lot of people, believe it or not, I see, could really care less what anybody thinks about them, and they just don't care when they dress. But a lot of people, they pick their clothes for function first, and secondarily because of how it will make them look, and how they feel about themselves when they are wearing certain things and how they look. But we also have to realize the other person. And this is more for the ladies than for the guys, because the ladies have parts that, if they get exposed, are very distracting to the guys. In the culture we live in. Other cultures, they could care less. But in most of the world, that is a very distracting thing to the men and can present a lust, fantasizing, whatever, all those things we just talked about, problem. And so you don't want to bring attention to a part of your body that will be a problem for somebody else. And clothing absolutely can be used to draw the eyes wherever you want. See, some of you remember the horrifying era of the shoulder pads. Frightening time. May it never come back. It can stay with the bell bottoms and other things too. They're not the same era, 170s, 180s, but still, Okay, but let's understand that what was the reason why the women had these shoulder pads? because a lot of the women had narrower shoulders and wider hips. And our eyes are drawn to the symmetry or lack of symmetry in the body. You bring the shoulder pads out to match up with the hips, and now the eyes don't have a place to be drawn to necessarily. Now you use the rest of the clothing to draw the eyes wherever you want. Does that make any sense? You understand? Just like people will say, well, stripes this way makes you look one way, stripes a different way makes you look a different way, certain things make you look fatter, make you look skinnier, whatever. It's about the effect on the visual impression someone gets visually by looking at you. You know, we had a young lady, I was working at New York Life, add this to the list of the million things I've done. I was selling insurance back in the early 90s. And there was a young lady, she was like in her early 20s, in the office. She was an administrative person for one of the agents, one of the really big agents. The rest of us couldn't have a person working for us, but anyway, this was like one of the top agents. And she would come in on a regular basis with really super short skirts and a fairly conservative top relatively. And all the guys would stare at her legs and her rear, whatever. And she would get all mad at them. And I looked at her one time and I said, really? You've got like neon signs pointing down. That's what you're trying to draw attention to. You're shocked that that's where everybody's looking? You wore clothing that forced everybody's eyes to that part of your body. Okay? Ladies can do the same thing with cleavage. You want to show a bunch of cleavage, where are all the eyes going to go? You can't help it. But not just the guys, the ladies will see it too. The eyes get drawn to where the eyes get drawn. So when you're dressing for decency, think about when you look in the mirror, if a man is looking at me, where are his eyes going to go? And is that where I want them to go? Because depending on where they go, thoughts follow. And then the man is challenged to wrestle those thoughts into captivity. And by the way, you think, well, the man should, no, forget that. He's a man. Just knock that whole thing off. Men are men. They are going, ladies, if your husband notices a woman you're walking through the mall and some lady inappropriately dressed, as you would say, has stuff that's hanging out wherever, and he notices her, recognize he's just a man. If he stares after her for like 20 minutes, you got a problem. But if he just noticed her and then he's back to you, he can't help that. He's a man. Don't smack him. And let's just play for like, what are you doing? Okay, that's okay. Or, caught you. That's okay too. But he can't help that. And by the way, you saw it too. When she walked by half hanging out wherever she was, you saw it. So he saw it too. Why you smack him? I'd be more concerned if she walked by, he'd even notice. Might have some tests done. Something's a little low. I'm serious. Some of you get so upset. Well, whenever we go out, he sees the pretty girls. Good, but he's with you. Is he asking them out, getting their phone numbers? No. Does he like walk around the mall trying to follow them? No. He noticed them for a few seconds when they walked by, and then he came back to focus on you. That's the way we were designed. Men are visual. And ladies, this goes back to the indecency dressing. You got to know that men are visual. When you get dressed, look in the mirror and think, if a man is looking at me, where is he going to be looking? In the culture we live in. Okay? It's cultural. Wherever you live, different culture, understand that things affect men differently in different cultures based on the culture. But we're visual. That he created us that way. Okay? This is facts, reality, okay? So please stop being upset about it. All right? There's a reason why all the stuff you see on TV, all the commercials with the girls in the bikinis and everything just to sell a car or beer or some other thing has nothing to do with cars or beer, is because the guys are going to have their eyes glued to the commercial. Okay? And somewhere in the back of their head, they're thinking, wow, if I get the car, I get the girl. You know, we're wired dumb, okay? And they know we're that dumb. Oh, I get the car if I gotta get the girl. No, you won't. Stupid. Okay? But you gotta know listen, you picked him, you married him, we're dumb as dirt. Okay, we're so simple. You guys think we're so complex. We are the dumbest, simplest things on the planet, and you don't understand that. Okay? And we are. but we're visual. So when we go back to the question Jet was at, or not Jet, whoever they asked the next question about indecency and dressing and whether we should be like they did in Yeshua's day, we don't live in Yeshua's day. The men don't dress like that, the women don't dress like that. Okay, so think about, is what I'm wearing likely to cause a problem? And by the way, think about the ladies too. Are the ladies gonna look at you and wonder, oh, whoa, she must be a fill in the blank, okay? Wearing that. Of course, you should never think those ways about anybody. They are who they are, walking their own walk. They'll figure it out. And none of them should be a threat to you. Look, if your guy is that easily swayed away from you, then something's already wrong in your relationship. You know? I remember when I was first dating, like late teens, early 20s, when I was first dating, and I was dating this very cute young girl, whatever it was, right? And so people would see her talking to somebody else, and they would ask me if I was jealous. And I would always say, no. And they said, why not? I said, well, look, if anybody out there could take her from me, I'd rather it happen sooner than later. Go. You understand? What's there to be jealous of? If he wants you, nobody can take him away. So you're worried about it. But he notices girls. Good. He's healthy. All right? And guys, don't turn that into now the excuse to ogle girls as they walk around. No, but just understand, you should keep your eyes in their sockets. The Jews have an idea, and the Orthodox of the idea of, protecting the eyes. Okay? You need to protect your eyes. And so you should be able to, like a whiplash, snap your head back as soon as you realize the natural thing happened. Your eyes saw something and you moved, and then you got to go back and say, okay, I need to not be over there with my eyes. Because you can't stop the people from walking around with all that stuff, but you can affect how you respond, okay? And so, yes, if the guy is doing these things, ladies, he's not cheating on you just because he saw the pretty girl that you saw too, all right? There's no two ways about it. You saw it just like he saw it. You just didn't think it was a problem when you saw it. All right. Okay, over here, who's next? Steve? Anybody dare to want to come up after all that?
All right. I have a few thoughts off of what Billy had shared, if I may. And it was...
Wait, we don't do afterburns for mini sermons during the praise time. No, go ahead. Billy was talking about praise.
It was when we're going up the hill, we can't see the top. That's, to me, a test of the strength of the why that we have the challenge.
Yes.
And then sometimes the struggle tests the worth before the reward is granted. Is that the right thinking? Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as decent, you talked about what is decent. Wouldn't we find a template of what is decent in the Torah, and then we add our culture?
Well, I mean, look, if everything's going to be in the context of culture, how we feel about things generally, but the scripture is going to let us know, do this, don't do that. And it's going to give you those lists. Do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. The things that it doesn't talk about are generally going to start to fall much more into our cultural understanding. Okay? It tells us not to behave indecently. It never tells us what that looks like. So we have to then go and interpret that. But remember, the context here, as I gave it to you, was in a relational thing called love. So now we got to think of it in that context, because everything that's happening in this communication in the scripture is in the context of whatever's happening at that moment. In this moment, Paul's trying to instruct them to understand relationships that are called loving relationships. If you're in a relationship and love is there, then it won't behave in a way that's considered indecent by those in the relationship. Okay? All right, did that answer that?
And then just the last thing, it says, if love endures all, then why is so many willing to quit on it so easily?
Okay, because again, the person's not filled with enough love, okay? If you have enough love, you will endure. So love is not the problem. You're the problem in not having enough of it. It's not strong enough in you for you to endure. Okay? All right, Brian.
You've said a lot. It was really good. I have to start off by first saying, Esther, I only have eyes for you, baby.
There you go.
So.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. And when he does notice the pretty girl, slap him twice.
I would actually enjoy that.
There should be a double. There should be a double. There should be a double judgment for someone who boasts out like that. And as far as him enjoying it, then kick him too. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
The other thing was when you were talking about communication.
I'm glad you guys are having fun with this because sometimes we get way too serious and we don't, and it just gets wrong. Okay? Go ahead.
You were talking about communication and passwords, and I still believe you're going to have one final test when you get to the kingdom door, and you're always going to say, hey, what's the password?
That's right. That's right. I'm going to need my login to get into the kingdom door.
But on a more serious note,
which apparently means I'm going to have Max with me because I have my passwords in my bag, and that's the only other way I'm going to have this work. Okay, go ahead.
but I really want to take a moment to praise the Father because after our discussion at lunch yesterday and then the teaching, and he really took a lot of, between lunch yesterday all the way up until now, he's taken a lot of these pieces and really made them click for me regarding the mindset and the way that I'm thinking about certain things, because I was thinking about that all last night and this morning, and then Billy got up to speak, and speaking about praise, and it got pretty intense, and I was looking around and everybody's, hooting and hollering, and it was like, wow, this is great. And I felt convicted. And that's why I come here, is to feel convicted, because I know that Yahweh's got something for me to learn, something to chew on.
Amen.
And I had to step outside for a few minutes to just be alone for a few minutes and really think about it and to pray, because I didn't understand what I was feeling. And I was asking Abba, I said, Abba, why am I feeling this way? Like, what is it that you want me to see or to understand? And I believe that what he told me was, like, I was having trouble because I don't understand the outward praise a lot of the time. It's not something that I've been able to comprehend. I've always been very internal with my praise. And for whatever reason, I was struggling with that. I'm like, why is that? And what I believe he told me was, I'm worthy not just of praise, but all praise. And he reminded me that of, everything that he's done for me and all of this, and it's something that I need to work on with my mindset. And it goes back to what Billy was talking about. If I'm in that mindset of praising him all the time, then I can finally get to that place where I can work on the other things, like loving myself, loving others, loving him more completely. And that really, everything that's been said today really helped that click into place for me to where I can finally start working on those things. And then when I was in the car, I finally got to the place to where I almost pulled a Billy and screamed Yahweh, but then Marco drove by in the golf cart and I was like, I'll hold up a minute. But it was really good, and I really appreciate it. And I thank you and Billy for getting out of the way and letting Abba speak, because it really did me a lot of good today. So.
All right, so wait, let me ask you a question. So why, and I heard most of what Billy said. Remember, I had to leave and go to my office for a second. I had to eat something so I could take some pills. But, and there's a little time delay when I put the broadcast on in my office. But I heard most of what Billy said. I could almost hear it through the walls when you guys were all screaming. But why do we struggle? Bear in mind, I'm asking the question already with an answer, but why do you think we struggle to praise? What do you think is underneath our struggle to praise?
My struggle personally is whenever I do anything, whenever I pray, I do my utmost to make sure that it's sincere, that I'm not doing it just to do it. But then it reminded me that I don't have to understand it to do it. I don't have to understand praise to praise Yahweh. I don't have to understand Torah to do Torah.
Okay, so, that's a completely circular answer sort of type of thing. Now, what is it really that's underneath why we don't feel that strength for praise? And the answer, I'll give you the answer instead of trying to pull it out of everybody. The answer is you don't truly believe and understand that what you're enjoying came from him. See, if I go and do all kinds of amazing things for you and it came from me, you're going to come up and say, oh, I'm so thankful, and you're almost in tears, and I appreciate you so much. You paid off my car or my house or my thing. And well, look, all of those things, if they happen, you're not realizing that it all comes from him. If it comes from him, then of course you would praise him, but you don't feel, because he's invisible and you're not here and you're not direct, so you're missing the praise because you don't truly know and feel and embrace that he provided. You see what I'm saying? Is that right? Come on now, praise him. Okay. See, so it's not, I don't want to pick on your answer, but it's not this like I need to do it even though I don't understand it. No, you have to understand it. You have to understand why you're not doing it. You're not doing it because you're not feeling it. Because praise comes from a feeling. It's not intellectually, I think I ought to give him credit and praise him. No, you feel blessed and loved and appreciate. See, it's about appreciating, but appreciating and knowing he gave you the thing you appreciate. That even though it came from Billy or from me or from this or from that, it doesn't matter who gave it to you, it still came from him. And so praising him comes out of really, truly, fully embracing that he is the actual source of the thing that you're excited about. Then you would praise him. So when we don't praise him, it's because we don't feel that feeling. Does that make sense? Because I've seen people come up to me when I've been able to help them with benevolence or some other thing, and their tears are dry, and they're just so moved, and they just, things, especially if I do something they're not expecting and it really blesses them. But do they do that for him? Because he's really the one that did it, not me. Okay? And so on all of the things in your life, okay, and all those things you're experiencing, and I struggle with this too, because I'm not that emotionally, expressive person. And so, but you know what? If I was really thinking about how much everything I have is from him, wow, okay? And so that's what's missing, is to truly embrace and feel that love and appreciation for him being the one that provided. Amen? Amen, good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right. All right, Justin.
Oh, so all this love and Torah stuff I've been listening to and paying attention, and after 20 years being with Denise, it's been a long road, 20 years. It seems like the more I learn, the harder it is, but then the easier it gets, if that makes sense, to learn how to be a man and how to be a husband, which is something I've never known, never was taught. But with this, I'm learning slowly but surely that I'll get there. But all the love stuff, it's teaching me that I have to completely die to myself. There cannot be any part of myself in my marriage. It needs to be about my wife first, her first, and everything first. And of course, I fail there a lot. I fell there a lot.
But it only makes it harder in some ways, because now she's reacting when she does to things that you actually did, thinking you're going to keep doing them. See, that's part of the hard thing for the guys and the ladies in these marriage deals, is that some of you have been married a while, so you have legitimate reasons why you have trust issues or whatever issues you have with each other, because stuff was going on. And yet, how do you now move forward like you're starting over without all that stuff already there still filtering in? And that's really hard to do. And it takes a lot of patience.
Yes, a lot. Trying to almost not forget, but let go of all the years prior and move forward and learn things new. I praise Yahweh that He's
all right, let me give you guys. Okay, I'm sorry. You say you're praising Yahweh, and I
praise
interrupt.
Yahweh that I have been given the opportunity to learn how to be a husband.
All right, good. Okay, let me give you a little tip real quickly for this is for all of you. You want to know how you're going to fix all these problems? This particular problem, the problem of too much past being in your thoughts in the present to make it hard for you to move forward, because you're afraid. I understand, right? You have a fear that the past is going to still happen. Your husband or the wife is still going to keep doing the thing that is, causing so much trouble. Well, I want to use the leverage we talked about last night. I want you to be more afraid of, if you can't let go of the past and give it a clean slate, you're doomed to it never working. all right? But see, you're not afraid of that. You're afraid the past is going to keep happening. There's very little fear that this is never going to work, because you already kind of figure it's never going to work anyway. No, I want you to be more afraid that if you can't try from a clean start and try to put everything in the past aside, learn from it, but not hold on to it, you can't move forward. And you need to be afraid of that I'm going to ruin the possibility that my husband or my wife can actually get where they're trying to get to, because I can't trust them enough to get there, because I'm so stuck with everything they did in the past that I'm dooming this thing. Think about that. And you need to leverage your mind. We talked about that last night, okay, the Rosh Kodesh service. You need to leverage your mind. So you're afraid. Well, be afraid of something else more than you're afraid of that. Okay? Or use a double sort of approach. Use the carrot and the stick. The fear is the stick. Keep reminding you how wonderful it would be if it would only work, and that it's worth hoping and believing it'll work, because what if it worked? What if you could get there, and how great that would be? Focus on how great it would be if you got there, and how much it would really be sad if you could never get there because you couldn't give it a chance because you didn't believe you could get there. So be afraid of that. So leverage yourself more, okay? Because I've had people say to me, but how can I trust him? How can I trust her? Well, if you can't, then might as well just give up now, because you'll never get there. You have to find a way to trust them, or you will never get there. We live in reality, yes or no? Okay? So we live in reality. Reality is, if you don't learn and find a way to trust the other person, you can't get there. Period. There's no situations where people from there actually succeed without trusting in some level. You have to trust it. Because if you don't trust it, you don't do the things you need to do. And if you don't trust it, all you're doing is looking for evidence that you were right, that it was never going to work, as opposed to looking for evidence that you were right, it was going to work. Whatever you look for, you're going to see. Just remember all that. Okay, who is next? Rob, you got more? Oh, Janet. I forgot we hadn't heard from you yet.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was awesome. Praise Yahweh for that.
There you go.
It came from him.
Praise him for that. And by the way, just to be clear, he does not really care the level of effusiveness that you have. The level of if it's in here, that's fine. If you're loud about it, that's fine. Be you. So don't think, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not really as, connected because I'm not like, you don't have to ever be that way. Okay? You're not somebody on like The Price is Right that just get called down. But just express your appreciation the way you do. Okay? Whatever that looks like, I don't know. Okay? All right, Janet, go ahead.
Yes, but talking about praises, I really love what you said, that sometimes we don't praise because we don't feel it. And this week I got to feel, got me a little bit to tears because of our congregation family here. How awesome, I was even talking to Gary earlier today, how awesome is it that we have this, that we can trust in each other to have our kids mingle and hang out together, and it's just amazing what we have. But it's his. He put this all together for us, which is really cool. I have a question about love. When you were talking about love covers it all, would that also mean that love forgives it all?
Well, I mean, love does forgive it all, but I wouldn't put it in that category, because you have to figure out a way to forgive no matter what. Because remember, forgiveness is about you, not the other person. Okay, and if you're listening and you have no idea what I'm talking about, there is a teaching called forgiveness, restoration, and reconciliation. Okay? Okay, so everybody must forgive everything. That doesn't mean anything has to be restored or reconciled. That's a whole different level of things. But you will suffer from bitterness, from anger, from all kinds of negative emotions if you don't. Forgiveness is simply releasing the negative feelings. Now, that's a love aspect of you. That's a loving yourself thing, okay? To love yourself would be definitely to let the toxicity of the negative things be released. And so holding on to unforgiveness is not a loving thing to do to yourself. Okay? It has nothing to do with loving the other person, because they may never even know that you forgave them. And that's not really relevant to the forgiveness part. Okay? Relationship may or may not be restored or reconciled. That's a whole different thing. But forgiveness has to be done. Okay? I think I've forgiven everybody that I've ever had any interaction with, that they thought they did something to me that I felt negative about, and I had to let it go. Okay? Because I've had people say, well, how can you interact with that person or this way, that way? Because I'm not angry about it anymore. I've released whatever negative feeling I had. That doesn't mean we're reconciled and restored in a relationship. That takes more than that. And I explained it in the teaching, but okay? What else?
And then the last one is when you were talking about love never fails, and you were saying that love in the context of a relationship, I always try to bring it to marriage. So when, like you said, we're supposed to make sure that, or he wants us to make sure that we are loving, right? As long as we're loving, we're doing what, we're becoming like him because he's love. But at the same time, in a covenant relationship, if we're both loving the way it says here, right? Like if we're being patient, kind, and all that, then it literally will never fail because we're both doing it.
Yep.
Will that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Question is, how do we get there?
Well, look, but even with all of those things, the thing is, in a relationship, you can be loving and kind and patient and all these things, but at some point, you're just not getting what you need out of it if you've not shared your expectations and agreed. Okay, so you could still, in not the effort to be unkind or anything, just realize this isn't fulfilling for you or for me, and we might need to just do something else. You have to, a marriage is an agreement to spend the rest of your lives working hand in hand, living hand in hand, and there's a lot of agreement that has to be there. And we spend a lot of times being disagreeable because we didn't agree. Okay, next, we've got Deirdre.
I'm really loving this. Verse 5, not behave indecently. You mentioned the discomforts that people have. Yahweh triggered a memory. When I was 15, my mother was a worship leader in the Seventh-day Adventist church that we were going to. And at that time, there was someone in the congregation that really had a thing about people being up on stage, singing, and wearing jewelry. So my mother, as the head of the worship team, said, okay, we're not going to wear jewelry on stage. You can wear your wedding ring, but you're not going to, we're not going to wear jewelry. And me, being my 15-year-old self, was just like, why are you caving? Why are you caving in? I didn't understand it. And she told me something. She said, I don't want them to see my jewelry as a stepping stone to what, a stumbling block to what they could be receiving.
Exactly.
Now, her point, I understand now, but me being 15 and childish, as is mentioned in verse 11, submitted to that, but in a very, very negative way. And so next Sabbath, basically, I wore fishnet gloves on stage, and it was, yeah.
Well, you were just trying to be yes.
Because
Okay.
I'm just a bit eclectic when it comes to my style, as nobody here, I'm sure, knew.
We have never noticed, by the way. We have never noticed. All right, so no, I appreciate that. Look, the thing is look, Paul talks about, in one, I can't remember exactly the location of the verse, but he talks about how while there may be things that are lawful, they're not always beneficial. So while you may be allowed to wear jewelry, wearing them in a place where it may stumble somebody else doesn't make it beneficial. So if you don't need to do something, but you can, but doing it will cause somebody else a problem, why do it? Because I can, and nobody's going to tell me what to do. Well, now you got an attitude problem. Okay?
That was exactly what was going on.
Yeah, but you were 15, I understand that. But your mom was showing maturity and said, this is why I can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay?
But
it's a choice.
But I wasn't showing love to my mother by doing that.
Yeah.
I get that I was 15. I get that I'm still goofy, but I was 15 goofy. So, I wasn't showing.
But you got to remember, at 15, all children, when they get to that sort of teenage range, and they're 15, 14, 16, something with that range, they're still trying to come into that place of self-authority. How much do I have to let other people tell me I can or can't do something? Mm-hmm. Okay? And so as we're trying to figure that out, we tend to swing the pendulum in the direction of nobody's going to tell me anything, I'll do what I want. And so anything that feels like restriction tends to be lashed out against or ignored. Okay? All right.
But later on, when I'll just say it. Rebbitzin Julie mentioned something to me when I was becoming, one of the dance leaders under Sarah Beth, and I was still wearing gloves in the congregation at the time, and because she didn't feel comfortable with me wearing it, I stopped, and it didn't take my brain more than a second than say, okay. And I don't remember ever feeling like I was being squashed in my personality. Right. And it's the maturity thing. And submission only comes with maturity, and when you are submitting, you show maturity and love.
Amen. And you actually understood what your mother was feeling.
Yes.
When she made her decision.
Yes.
There you go.
So I'm very grateful, and I'm hoping I'm not embarrassing you when I'm out there. So.
There you go. All right.
So I can't place exactly where, but I know I read.
Got to bring the mic right up to your mouth.
I know I read it's good not to pick up a reproach with a friend, and I was kind of relating that to reckon not the evil. I was wondering, with that, you said don't bring a reckoning to the evil, but does that also mean don't call people out when you feel like they've done something wrong?
No, it's not talking about that. Look. If something happens, the way you respond to it has everything to do with the level of relationship you have with that person. If you are in a close enough friendship where you have accountability with each other, you may expect the other person to literally call you out. If you have a different level of friendship, it's not so much calling them out, but making them aware of something that, hey, you may not realize it, but what you just did really hurt my feelings, or I really didn't appreciate it, or it really wasn't very nice. And that's not so much calling them out, but bringing to their attention, okay? Reckoning the evil is more a judgmental seat person. Oh, that person's just such a jerk. Can you believe that person is being a jerk? Well, maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe who knows what it really was, but you've already reckoned it, okay? They're just bad people. They're just a whatever. And you catch somebody on the wrong day, they could seem like that. And it may not be anything to do with how they really are, but you caught them in a wrong moment. So, no, it's not saying that you shouldn't speak up, but you should speak up appropriately to the level of relationship. Okay? So I'm not saying all of you should just go up to anybody you barely know and speak up. I can't believe the level of arrogance, I guess, or just nosy, busybody stuff that goes on Facebook where people are correcting and instructing people they've never met, don't have any relationship with, but happen to be in a group where they see a post and they just jump in there like they have some authority or something. And worse, the person who receives the post thinks that person has authority and they're affected by what whoever it is, anybody you don't know, wrote on your post. And then you call me all upset. Well, why are you upset? Somebody said this stuff to me on Facebook. How well do you know them? I don't know them. Why does it bother you? Okay, but it's amazing how many people are really bothered by stuff people say and they don't know the person. It's bad enough if you're bothered by somebody you actually know. But why would you be bothered by somebody you don't even know? It doesn't make any sense at all. All right, Rob.
I've got quite a few. Do you want me?
No, just a couple because it's already 5:45 here almost. We'll take one or two and just try to get through some.
Okay, I'll go through some of these. Anna Uden says, how can we set expectations in a relationship that you've had for a long time without angering the other person?
Okay, we're not understanding the term. We're not setting expectations. You're sharing your expectations with the other person, and they're sharing theirs, and then you're coming to agreement. Okay, setting sounds like I'm imposing my expectations. okay? So when I sit down with my wife and we would do this, I'm not going to set expectations with her. I'm going to say, sweetheart, knowing you as well as we know each other, I want to make sure we're clear that this is what, going forward, you can expect from me as your husband, and this is what the things I'm expecting from you. And then you share with me, and then we talk about the things that we agree about, and then we talk about things we didn't agree about, all right? And so, because the expectation's already there, now we want to make the other person aware of them and see if we can come into agreement. And then what we agree upon, then that sets the expectation. It's like setting your mind, right? We talk about a mindset. You got to get all the pieces together, get them lined up, and then you lock them in. Problem is that when you talk about setting expectations, it sounds like I'm going to set the expectations and you're just stuck with it. So don't do that. That won't work at all. Bad idea, all right? Next.
Okay, from Yanni, it says, question, love covers all. There must be a line somewhere. If I get married to a covenanted and he goes to a world religion and doesn't live Torah, then I can't let my love, I think she's asking, I can't let my love cover him, or does my love not cover him if he left Abba?
Okay, we're struggling to go from the way you were always taught something to what I was trying to teach you, okay? But let me digress just for a second. One more thing for the expectations thing. If you're going to do this expectation thing with each other, before you do the sharing, make sure you explain to the person that don't get mad, don't laugh. This is really where I'm at. And you may think it's dumb or foolish or ridiculous, but this is where I'm coming from. It's real. And I will look at yours and feel the same way. I'm going to let you share them as your actual expectations. Because the question had been like, how do you keep them from getting angry? Well, you tell them up front, this is really what I expect of you and what you can expect of me. You're not going to agree with all of it, and then you're going to share with me, and I'm not going to agree with all of it either, but then we can talk about and negotiate it. But don't, I tell people when I have them do this premaritally as part of their engagement process, and I say, look, and when you do this meeting where you sit down with the expectations, neither one of you, unless it's a joke, goes, you expect what? Because there'll be a few things that one may expect and the other one doesn't, that the person's like, really? I didn't even think about that, Well, that ain't happening. So, but you have to react more properly and say, that's the way the other person really feels. And you say, well, actually, I wasn't really thinking about that. That's not really what I would be offering you. But if that's what you want, I'm okay to do it. Or that's not really my preference, but this other thing that you really weren't liking, how about if I get some of that and you get some of this, and then we kind of move in the direction, okay? And so you negotiate some things. And so you have something to work with. Because there's going to be stuff that each of you was like, I really wasn't planning to do that. And you say, I'll tell you what, I'll do that if you do this. It's a negotiation. You walk in an agreement. So you're kind of trading off things, okay? Some of it, hopefully because you got married, you're going to have agreement on anyway. Because after all, you picked each other. There should be some things you agree about, right? Maybe. All right. So now the next thing was about the covering. Okay.
Yep.
Listen, you have to understand the difference between covering all what it's talking about here and having a marriage problem, a relationship problem. Okay, love, it says, it covers all, believes all. Now, covers means that it's in a relationship that's in agreement. It's a filter to see through and filter through when you have your struggling moments. Problem is that right now you're in an unequally yoked position and you're in very, very large levels of walking in not agreement, or whatever the right way to say it. You're not in agreement in this big section of he's in a totally different belief system than you are. So if you love the person, you can allow that if they're going to respect that they're going to allow you to be where you are. So in that case, it's covering or filtering that you can have the patience and the endurance to allow them to be that way. But of course, that's expecting that they're going to respect and allow you to do what you're doing. When you're unequally yoked, it can work. Not perfectly, maybe not even greatly. But if the person can respect that you're walking out your own thing, it can work. I know people that it does work with. I also know a lot of people it doesn't work with, because the spouse that's not walking this out can be very, very, very difficult in treating the person who's trying to walk this out. To hinder it, to mock it, to attack it, to do whatever. Well, in that case, you have a relationship problem. Not a Torah problem, but a relationship problem. You're both walking and you're not agreeing on how to walk. Because you can agree to allow him to go to his church and you to come and do this. You can agree to that. You can agree to all kinds of things that allows for both of you to do what you are doing and walking out your own deals. But you have to come to agreement. So the problem you have is not whether or not it's a covering, but whether or not you guys can actually come to agreement. An agreement doesn't mean you're both doing exactly the same thing. You can agree on how you're going to deal with something you don't agree on, okay? And how you're going to handle that. Next. We'll get one more and then we'll be done.
Okay, from Donna Stevens. Says, my sister and I have noticed how many in our family, including ourselves, find it hard to receive love in any of its forms. It tends to make us uncomfortable as we feel weird. How do we overcome that?
Okay, you're going to need counseling because, and I'm not saying in a bad way, you're going to need counseling to have somebody help dig underneath to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on there that has to be figured out first. I'm not even going to start to guess the kinds of things that are there. There's damage that's not been fixed. There's the way you see yourself that's not been dealt with. I'm sure that's part of it. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are part of that. And so it takes a professional or an anointed person who's got talents and gifts in that kind of thing to unravel and dig underneath to figure out why you're not receiving, okay? But it could be too many different things for me to give an answer here. So if you're feeling that, any of you out there that are feeling it, I like the question, that's when you go and make a phone call and get counsel, okay? All right, that'll wrap it up. I hope everybody enjoyed that and benefited from it and it was blessed, okay? Do we have...